Week 7 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters that can help your fantasy roster. And you should add this week the first guy, Casey Schmidt of the San Francisco Giants. So Schmidt, not a highly top prospect in the Giants system, but he came up and he's been tearing it up so far in the first week in the season. On the year, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 500 batting average, and a 500 on base percentage. So Schmidt, he's gone out there and he's red hot, but we know it's only been 24 at-bats. But he's showing some pop, and this Giant team we know needs offense. So the first few games of his Major League career, May 9th versus Washington, 2 for 4, a homer in that one. May 10th versus Washington, 2 for 4, 2 runs. May 11th at Arizona Diamondbacks, 4 for 4, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. May 12th at Arizona, 1 for 4 with a rib. May 13th at Arizona, 2 for 4. And May 14th at Arizona in that one, 0 for 4 with 3 Ks. So that worst game of his MLB career. But right now, he's playing good baseball, qualifies at shortstop and third base, which is obviously a huge thing in fantasy baseball here, where not much of that is going on, where you have a guy that can hit the baseball like Schmidt has in the early going and qualify at a weak shortstop position. The only thing right now is Brandon Crawford got activated off the injured list. But even with the DH, I think they could find a spot here for Schmidt for a team that's starving for offense. So right now, available is Schmidt in still a decent amount of fantasy leagues at 61%. But if he keeps up the hot hitting, he's going to be owned in way more fantasy leagues, and he won't be available in many by next week. The next guy's Lamont Wade Jr., his teammate of the San Francisco Giants. So Lamont Wade Jr. off to a good start so far, and he's got decent versatility as well. First base and outfield he qualifies for. So on the season, 7 home runs, 14 RBIs, 17 runs scored, a stolen base, a 278 average, and a 439 on base. So right now, he's getting on base almost 50% of the time is Lamont Wade Jr. He's got a good eye at the plate. He's the table setter most nights for the San Francisco Giant team. And he's a good ball player, I believe, is Lamont Wade. Right now, very surprising, he's still out there in 74% of fantasy leagues. So if you need some power, run scored, and a good on-base percentage, that's what Wade will bring to fantasy owners. May 10th versus the Nationals, 1 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs. May 11th at the Diamondbacks, 1 for 4 with a rib. May 12th at the Diamondbacks, 3 for 5, 2 runs scored. May 13th at Arizona, 1 for 3. And May 14th at the Diamondbacks, 0 for 4. So right now they got a matchup coming up with the Phillies, with the Giants going back home to start the week here. And Lamont Wade, with his versatility and doing a little bit of everything for fantasy owners, should be owned in way more fantasy leagues. And right now is the time to go get him. The next hitter is Joey Meneses of the Washington Nationals. So Meneses last season, it was a great second half for him, especially when the Nats traded all their players away. So far this season, the power's definitely been down. 2 home runs, 17 RBIs, 16 runs scored, a 287 average, and a 313 on base. But the last few weeks here for Meneses, he's tearing it up. 1 home run, 9 RBIs, 9 runs scored, 333 average, and a 345 on base. So right now, not available in many fantasy leagues at only 46%. And he's getting an everyday opportunity for a rebuilding Washington National team. May 7th at Arizona, 3 for 5, a homer, 4 RBIs, 2 runs scored. May 8th at the Giants, 2 for 4, run, and an RBI. May 9th at the Giants, 1 for 4 with a run. May 10th at the Giants, 2 for 4, a run and a rib. May 12th versus the Mets, 1 for 4 with an RBI. And May 14th versus the Mets, 1 for 4. So right now, he's getting a hit about a game. Joey Meneses, he qualifies as well at first in outfield. And he's a guy right now on an 8-game hitting streak. So while he's playing good baseball, is Meneses, and definitely going out there and helping fantasy owners. He's a player to add this week, getting the everyday chance and hitting for good average and driving in runs of late. The next hit is J.D. Davis of the San Francisco Giants. So the Giants, a lot of hitters on this list this week here with 3 ball players. And they need hitting in the worst way, wherever they could get it. But some of these guys are at least helping for fantasy purposes. On the season for Davis, 7 home runs, 22 RBIs, 13 runs scored, a 300 batting average, and a 368 on base. So Davis, first 3 weeks of the season was on fire. He cooled off a little bit, but now he's picked it back up over the last 2 weeks again with 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 4 runs scored, a 350 average, and a 426 on base. So J.D. Davis showing pop, hitting for average, and he's driving in runs. So he just needed a change of scenery, most likely from New York to the Giants, and it's definitely helping J.D. Davis. And he also plays first and third for fantasy baseball. May 10th versus the Nats, 1 for 3 with a run. May 11th at the Diamondbacks, 2 for 4 with a run. May 12th at the Diamondbacks, 3 for 5 in RBI. May 13th at Arizona, 0 for 3 with an RBI. And May 14th at Arizona, 0 for 3. So right now, Davis playing good baseball. Still out there in a decent amount of fantasy leagues at 57%. And hey, if he struggles, you could just always drop him again. But right now, he's the mainstay in this lineup, batting third or fourth for San Francisco on most nights. And he's a solid pickup this week. The next hit is Dominic Fletcher of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Fletcher called up recently, and he's gone out there and he's tearing the cover off the ball in the early going. Right now is Fletcher on the season, 2 home runs, 13 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 432 batting average, and a 468 on base. So Fletcher, he's only got on the season 2 at-bats, but he's going out there and he's playing great baseball for this Diamondback team. A team obviously starving for offense as well. May 9th versus the Miami Marlins, 1 for 4. May 10th didn't play in that one. May 11th versus the Giants, 3 for 4, 2 RBIs. May 12th versus the Giants, 3 for 4, homer, 4 RBIs. May 13th versus the Giants, 2 for 4, homer, 5 RBIs. And May 14th versus the Giants, 0 for 3. So right now he's on a hot streak. He's Dominic Fletcher, and he's got good matchups coming up at the Oakland Athletics. They're the worst team in the majors, in my opinion. So right now, while he's going out there hitting great baseball, even though it's a small sample size in 42 at-bats, it's a perfect time to go out there and get Fletcher. Available right now, 90% of fantasy leagues. And if he could keep the lightning in the bottle for fantasy owners and this Diamondback team, he could be a major pickup this week, or it could be nothing. That's just the way fantasy baseball is. Sometimes you take a shot on a play, he pans out and he becomes a mainstay, and sometimes it's a few week hot streak and he fizzles out. But right now, if you got a hitter that's not doing much on your roster, I definitely would take a shot at Fletcher this week. The next hit is Jake Fraley of the Cincinnati Reds. So coming into the season, I thought Fraley could be a sleeper, but he didn't do much the first 5-6 weeks of the season. But the last few games he's really picked it up is Fraley. On the season, 5 home runs, 28 RBIs, 15 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 269 average, and a 364 on base. Right now available in tons of leagues at 83%, but the last couple weeks is where he's getting it going. 3 home runs, 12 RBIs, a stolen base, a 357 average for Fraley, and a 438 on base. So right now we know this Red team doesn't have a great offense, and Fraley's going out there and he's definitely providing the punch for this Red team. And he's been mashing the baseball of late. May 9th versus the Mets, 0 for 1. May 10th versus the Mets, 1 for 3 with an RBI. May 11th versus the Mets, 3 for 4, run an RBI. May 12th in Miami, a big game, 2 for 4, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 3 runs scored. May 13th at the Marlins, 2 for 4, homer, 4 RBIs, a stolen base, 2 runs scored. And May 14th, he pinched hit at the Marlins, 0 for 1. So the only thing with Fraley, he don't verse lefties. He sits all those ball games versus lefties. And right now he's got a great matchup coming up at Coors Field to start the week here, where the ball flies out of the yard. And we're fairly on a hot streak as well. He definitely could go out there and help fantasy owners. So this is a perfect time to go out there and get him on your roster. But the only thing, like I said, is that is a downside, is the strikeout numbers are pretty high for Fraley on the season. And also, he don't play versus lefty, so he's pretty much 5 days a week. The next hitter I look to get on the wire this week here, Moniak of the Los Angeles Angels. So Moniak, a versatile prospect who came up a couple days ago, and so far in the early going for Moniak, 4 for 8, a homer, an RBI, 4 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, and the batting average in the early going's 500 with a 600 on base. So right now Moniak, we'll see if he's gonna have a spot with this Angel team. Right now he's out there in tons of fantasy leagues at 97%, and the Angels called him up and they want to see what he could do. Last season he had a cup of coffee with the Angels, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 13 runs scored, but so far in the early going, he's come up and he's made an impact in the first 2 ball games here for this Angel team, batting first as well. And this Angel team calling up the young guys we saw with Nitto earlier in the season, and now calling up Moniak. So right now Taylor Ward's been struggling. I don't know if Monak's going to take the spot, but the first 2 games up he's batted first and he's been productive for this Angel team. So if he could bat first, he'll score a lot of runs. He's going to steal some bases, already with 2 on the season here. And as long as this Angel team sticks with him, he's definitely a hitter to go out there and add and catch lightning in a bottle with his Moniak this season. The next hit is Elias Diaz of the Colorado Rockies. So Diaz off to a great start this season, and catcher, obviously one of the weakest positions in fantasy baseball. So on the season here for Diaz, 3 home runs, 18 RBIs, 14 runs scored, a 329 batting average, and a 383 on base percentage. In the last couple weeks here, he's been a hit machine. 1 home run, 7 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 353 average, and a 385 on base. So right now, Diaz, he's not available in many fantasy leagues anymore. Only a 51%. And I said last week to go out there and get him. And right now, every week the numbers going up as he pretty much gets at least a hit per game is Diaz. May 8th at the Pirates, 0 for 3. May 9th at the Pirates, 1 for 3, 2 runs. May 12th versus the Phillies, 1 for 4. May 13th versus the Phillies, 1 for 4. And May 14th versus the Phillies, 1 for 3. So right now, batting anywhere from 3rd to 5th in the lineup is Diaz here. He's a catcher, which is a weak position, like I said, and he's got a good matchup versus a pretty weak pitching staff in the Cincinnati Reds coming up to start the week with the Rockies at home. So Diaz, he's not going to give you power, but RBIs and batting average he will, and you can't go wrong, especially at the catcher position, to get those categories. The next hit is Alex Kirilloff of the Minnesota Twins. So Kirilloff, a former top prospect in the Twin system, and they're hoping he can pan out and get things going. So right now he's available in 87% of fantasy leagues. He is Kirilloff, and it's small sample size to start the year, but he's definitely off to a good start in the early going. 9 for 22, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs on the year, 6 runs scored already, a 428 batting average, and a 587 on base percentage in the early going for Kirilloff. So Kirilloff, he qualifies at first in the outfield. Like I said, this Minnesota team, they're always looking for hitting as well. And Kirilloff, he was a former top prospect in the system the last few seasons, had good minor league numbers, and right now he's getting an everyday opportunity, and he's batting anywhere to 2nd or 4th in the lineup for this Twin team, and available in 87% of leagues, like I said. So if he could get going and get hot, he's definitely a nice add this week. May 10th versus the Padres, 2 for 4 in RBI. May 11th versus the Padres, 1 for 3 a run. May 12th versus the Cubs, he pinch hit in that one, 0 for 1. May 13th versus the Cubs, 3 for 3, 2 homers in that one, 2 RBIs, 3 runs scored. And May 14th versus the Cubs, 2 for 6. So right now, Kirilloff playing good baseball. Like I said, he's had great minor league numbers, former top prospect. I know last season he didn't do anything in 144 at-bats with 3 homers, 21 RBIs, but he's done everything he can at AAA. And I think this season he could be a decent piece for fantasy owners right now. And a hitter to add this week, and the final hitter I look to get off the wire this week here is Matt McLain of the Cincinnati Reds. So McLain, their top infield prospect, pulled up last night, and he's going to be playing here today, Matt McLain. So on the season in the minor leagues, he's tearing it up, a 346 batting average, 464 on base, 12 home runs, 10 stolen bases in 37 games. So McLain, a first-round pick in 2021 out of UCLA. And right now, this Red team, we know they need offense. They need to spark a little bit. And we know they're a team down in the standings where it might be time, even though it's still only mid-May, to see what the youngsters got. So right now, Matt McLain, he should be owned in a majority of fantasy leagues. Time of recording this video, he's still out there in 97% of fantasy leagues. But that number's going to go up quickly, especially if he comes up right away and produces for this Red team. And right now, he does qualify at shortstop, which obviously is one of the weakest positions in fantasy baseball. And they're not getting much from the shortstop position over there as this Red team after trading Kyle Farmer away in the offseason to Minnesota. So the McLain's going to come up. He's probably going to be shortstop every day for this team. And what a better way than to start a series at the Colorado Rockies for his major league career. So right now, go out there to the waiver wire and get McLain, because if he gets off to the hot start, like I said, by next week, he's not going to be available in many fantasy leagues, and it looks like he's going to bring power, batting average, and stolen bases going off his minor league numbers this season. So that's a few hitters I look to add here in Week 7 of the fantasy baseball season.